My name is Tiffany. Before I got married, I worked full-time, but the truth is, the company I worked for had terrible working conditions. I had nearly 90 hours of unpaid overtime. I contemplated continuing to work even after marriage, but due to health issues, I decided to quit. Now I live a healthy lifestyle, waking up and going to bed at regular hours. My health improved drastically after quitting. My husband, Theo, didn't oppose my decision to quit. He seems to love that I am home, taking care of household chores and welcoming him back from work. Back when we were newlyweds, he would often express how lucky he felt to have a wife who welcomed him home. However, after 5 years, that sentiment became a given, but that's to be expected. Still, issues crop up over the years. My mother-in-law, Sarah, who used to be sweet, now often asks when we will give her a grandchild every time we visit. She always chooses to say it when Theo isn't around. Years of hearing this has built up considerable stress for me. To be honest, I don't want to see her because of the pressure she puts on me. My father-in-law, John, is a quiet and kind man who doesn't interfere. The irony is that Theo says kids are just a hassle and cost a lot, yet when confronted by his parents, he acts as if it's none of his business. Once I told him if he didn't want kids, he should explain it to his parents, but he shrugged it off, saying it's a conversation for a woman. At crucial times, he evades responsibility with his own set of values. Because of this, to his mother, I seem like the wife who can't have children, and he's the husband supporting her. Finally, I tried to clarify that it's Theo who doesn't want kids, but Sarah, convinced I can't get pregnant, replied, "You're just trying to put the blame on someone else." John sometimes tells Sarah not to interfere with our choices, but she doesn't listen. In the end, Theo doesn't want the hassle of parenting, but also doesn't want to upset his mother. It's evident that he's always trying to please his mom. Honestly, I never thought he'd be this unreliable. If a ship were sinking, he'd probably save his mother before me. Yes, he's a bit old-fashioned, but at least we're not living with them. My mother casually responds over a weekday afternoon call. Over the past year, I've often vented to my mother about Theo and Sarah. Although my mom is quiet, she's rational. She patiently listens and often calms me down. I feel guilty sometimes, thinking that a wife shouldn't complain about her husband to her parents. But with Theo not being supportive, my mom is the only person who truly understands me. I'm sorry for always talking about this. I know you have your struggles too, I say. It's okay, Mom's fine now. The hospital tests showed nothing wrong, she replies. In reality, she had heart surgery and got a pacemaker just 3 months ago. I was worried when I heard she was going in for the procedure, but she just laughed it off. It reminds me of when I told my husband. He said pacemakers are pretty common these days. It's not that big of a deal. Yet, when his own mother sprained her ankle, he panicked and promised I'd help out without asking me first. Talk about double standards. I mean, a surgical operation is way more serious than putting a plaster on an ankle. I always find myself complaining over the phone and rarely visiting my family since I live far away. I haven't been the best daughter to my parents, but this time I plan to surprise my mom on her birthday with a trip in collaboration with my dad. I'm home, dinner's ready, I announce as my husband, as always, takes a seat at the dinner table. He never really comments on the food anymore, but I was excited about the plan I made with my father. Actually, my mom's birthday is coming up, I mentioned, hoping to pique his interest. He paused, eating his steak, and looked at me quizzically. I was thinking of booking a hotel in Lake Tahoe and taking a trip there. Really? He responded, not seeming too keen. The hotel is quite fancy, and it's popular around here. I got a great deal through a contact, I explained, hoping to sway him. Ah, a luxury hotel. His eyes lit up at the mention of luxury. We're getting separate rooms from your parents, right? Yes, we are. And since both my parents will be there, why don't we do some sightseeing in Lake Tahoe together? I suggest, hoping to involve him more. Sure, he agrees, seeming somewhat interested. At least he seems willing to spend time with my family for a change, considering he spends most of his time with his own. Luckily, this time I don't need to arrange the date or the hotel booking. My parents are taking care of everything. It's like I'm letting them do everything for me, which might seem more like me being spoiled rather than being kind to them. What's the trip? I need to apply for my leaves. My husband throws the question over his shoulder as I start packing in the bedroom. Didn't I tell you? It's on the 23rd and the 24th, I remind him. Oh, right, he responds absent-mindedly, fiddling with his phone. He never really pays much attention to me or my family, but on reflection, indifference was better than his past reactions. On the day of the trip, we drive to the luxury hotel in Lake Tahoe. My parents had arrived the previous night. Today's plan was to explore Lake Tahoe with them and enjoy dinner at the hotel. It's been a while since. The last time I saw them was maybe since my mother's surgery. They are both retired and don't usually explode, so a trip like this should be fun. I sat in the passenger seat, leafing through a Lake Tahoe travel magazine. Upon arriving, I planned to call my parents to the lobby after checking in, but they were already in the parking lot, and standing next to them was Sarah. Suddenly, my husband parked the car abruptly and rushed over to them. What on earth is happening? I wondered. I was sure I had explained the plan properly. I quickly got out of the passenger seat of the car and followed to see what's going on. While I was flustered, my husband began speaking fluently to my parents. You knew of a great hotel, didn't you? We plan to enjoy it with my parents from tomorrow. You've already paid for the stay, right? My parents were stunned. Of course they would be. This was completely unplanned. My mother-in-law, as brazen as ever, said, "You sure know some good hotels. Take care of it for us, okay? And next time, let's go to Alaska." On the other hand, my father-in-law, seemingly as clueless about the situation as we were, asked my husband, "Didn't you invite us on this trip? You said you'd cover the costs." Hearing that, I could feel the blood rush to my head. Wait a minute, this hotel was arranged by my parents. Why would you just invite yours? I questioned, feeling the frustration building. Now my mother-in-law chimed in. What's the big deal? You can't hog such a nice hotel for yourself. You should care more about your husband's parents. I wanted to treat my parents to a luxury trip because I rarely get to see them, unlike John and Sarah. Plus, today is my mom's birthday. My mother-in-law gave me a disdainful look, sizing me up from head to toe. You've never gotten me a birthday present. Such blatant favoritism, she accused. What? I raised my voice in disbelief. You did send Sarah her favorite flowers recently, didn't you? That was from your son. Stop taking credit for other people's gestures, I added, feeling frustration bubbling up. I looked at my husband, who was avoiding my gaze. He never showed any interest in giving gifts since our marriage. I've always been the one choosing and giving gifts. So, you kept silent about the gift for Sarah? I continued, feeling a mix of disappointment and anger. Looking into my husband's eyes, he said something unthinkable. Look, I'm using your money to buy them. It's the same as if I picked and bought them myself, he said, seeming genuinely annoyed. Send your parents home, my mother-in-law injected without missing a beat. That's right. From now on, it's quality time for our son and us, she added firmly. I was deeply hurt. I never imagined he'd be this way. Where did the kind man I married disappear to? Then a robust man in a suit approached us quickly. Is there a problem? He asked. Before he could finish, my mother-in-law began speaking at lightning speed. We want these people gone. We'll use their remaining nights. I'm sorry, but we can't do that, the man replied. Why not? She snapped back. They have already paid, and we have them booked until the day after tomorrow, he explained patiently. In her fury, she pointed at me. She is my son's wife. What belongs to my son's wife and her parents is practically ours, she declared. My husband just nodded, seeming to agree with her. Seeing that scene, all my pent-up feelings felt like they exploded. The man apologized and said they couldn't do that, but she replied, First of all, you are letting such poor-looking people stay here. Won't it ruin the hotel's reputation? My husband started blaming me along. I decided to approach my husband from behind and reveal the truth. You know, this place is my father's family home. I began, watching as both my husband and mother-in-law stared at me with wide eyes. The man in the suit is my father's younger brother, which means he is my uncle. My uncle started speaking in a firm yet humble tone. My brother and I have a big age difference. Back then, our parents were busy with their hotel business. He took care of me like a parent. Everything I have now is because of him. Hearing this, my father became emotional and whispered, "You." When I heard you were staying here, I was truly happy, thinking I could finally repay his kindness. But you think you could stay for free just because it's your son's wife's family? I could hear my mother-in-law groaning. We have rooms available ranging from $450 to $1,800 per night. Please proceed to the front desk if you are interested. Caught off guard, my husband and his mother were flustered. What do we do? We don't know any other hotels, my husband muttered, looking lost. Watching the two, my father-in-law let out a deep sigh. This is karma for always taking credit for Tiffany's achievements and trying to impress your mother with them. My husband seemed at a loss for words. I'm truly sorry, everyone, he finally said. I never thought my son would do something like this. My father began to apologize deeply. No, wait, John, I quickly intervened. My father-in-law is a victim too. He was invited to the hotel by his son only to find out he'd been deceived. Though my mother-in-law seemed to have learned even more, suddenly she had an idea. Wait, since it's a hotel run by relatives, can't you give us a discount? We are family after all, she suggested shamelessly. How shameless can she be? Has she forgotten all that she has done? I wondered silently, but my uncle calmly stated, I don't consider someone who insults my loved ones as family. His words made me realize something. The way my husband and mother-in-law had been treating me all along was condescending. All the unpleasant tasks were left to me. Any praise was stolen by them. What was I to them? They exploited and belittled me. If they had thought about my family even a little, this trip wouldn't have happened. You've always looked down on me, haven't you? I said, looking at my husband, who hung his head in silence. You thought my parents would let this slide if you pushed hard enough. How awful. I couldn't afford to stay at such an expensive hotel. I just wanted to impress people, he said, his face full of regret, glaring at me. My father-in-law approached, looking disappointed. Isn't this just like you? Always trying to look good in front of your mother, who is the person you should be protecting the most right now, huh? My husband stood still, looking confused with a stoic face. My father-in-law continued, Listen, you are married. Your priority should be protecting your wife, not impressing your mother. But my husband looked away, avoiding eye contact. However, I noticed the expression on his face. He would always choose his mother, no matter what anyone says. Summoning my courage, I raised my voice. John, thank you for all you've done for me so far. You've helped me more times than he ever did, but I can't continue living with him as a couple any longer, I declared firmly. My husband looked up, surprised. Let's get a divorce. I continued, feeling a surge of liberation as I said the word out loud. Right. I've always wanted to divorce him. Are you serious? I heard my mother's voice from behind. I nodded. Yes, I've been thinking about it for a while now. Hold on, I'll apologize for what happened this time, my husband scrambled, but it was almost like seeing a stranger. It's not just about what happened this time, I explained. It's about the forgotten gifts for Sarah and countless other things. Of course, today played a part in my decision. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, her face red with fury, yelled, A woman like you who doesn't work or even have children should be grateful just to be married. The realization that I could also sever ties with her left me with no fear. Look, I won't be belittled. And just for your information, it was your son who didn't want kids, saying parenting would be a hassle. I bet you never heard that from him, I remarked, watching as my mother-in-law just sat down stunned. She had always believed it was my fault, not realizing it was her son's decision all along. So, my husband and mother-in-law were taken away by my father-in-law, and I went on to enjoy a family vacation with my own parents. You had quite the eventful birthday, didn't you? My mom chimed in with her usual cheerful tone. As long as you are happy, that's all that matters. But who knew he was that awful? I should have visited earlier to see how things were. No, it's okay. I've been in that life for so long. I became indifferent. This was a wake-up call, I replied, reflecting on the situation. My typically silent father seemed to have a hint of joy on his face. After that, my husband and I divorced, but it seems the relationship between him and his mother has soured. He was never the considerate type and always left everything but his job to me. Without me, his apartment was reportedly turned into a garbage dump. Apparently, my ex-mother-in-law visits him regularly to clean up. However, she's nearing her breaking point, often fighting with the son she used to adore. Once their argument got so heated the police were called. My ex-father-in-law claimed she brought this upon herself by spoiling their son. Interestingly, on the day of the hotel incident, a neighborhood association president, whom my ex-mother-in-law was close with, was on vacation and was there too. He saw all her unreasonable antics. As a result, she's lost all respect in their community, labeled as the mother of the husband who bullied his wife into divorce. As for me, I found a job at my uncle's hotel. Searching for a job post-divorce, he offered me a position, keeping the fact that I'm the owner's relative a secret. I'm now learning from more experienced staff members. The hotel job requires meticulous attention, and while there are tasks I haven't mastered yet and times I've been corrected, it's a far cry from the unappreciated housework I did before. Every effort here gets its due recognition.